Hey everyone, just so you know, the following video is a clip from a show I actually do on AFTV. The full link for the video is in the description below. Thank you for your continued support, really appreciate it. I've rambled on long enough. Let's talk about Granit Xhaka. Well, I just try and look as well for any sort of coverage or any reports as to what's going on there. He was standing ovation, not just from the fans, everyone on the bench as well, the manager, and I think that speaks to the staff too. I think that speaks to what he is behind the scenes and how appreciated he is there. And then, he scored his 2 goals. The fans saying, "We want you to stay," apparently.
Oh, really?
Saying,
that's good. It's a nice touch. Even though they know he won't be staying. Huh?
Yeah, well, exactly. And I think the We've Got Granit Xhaka song, look, it's a very good turnaround. His relationship with the fans has turned around massively, but more so performances as well. This isn't just, he's a lovely guy and the fans started to see that. He was playing at such a level, and he's shown a commitment to Arsenal over the last 2-3 years that has been really appreciated. This season's been brilliant and he leaves with a bang. Absolutely.
And it's interesting because we were talking on the live stream about his contribution since he's been at Arsenal, and a lot of people have said that in the first, how long has he been there? 7 seasons?
So I think he's been there since summer 2016. 16, 17, 17, 18. I think it's about 7
There's
seasons,
a school of thought that some people are going with that suggests that whilst the last 2 seasons have been good, the initial period wasn't so good, and that if you're going to judge him, you have to balance it and say, look, what about the first 4 or 5 seasons when he was under par for large parts of that? But to take it as a whole, I think he's been a force for good. I've long been an advocate for Xhaka, even when it wasn't fashionable to do so.
No, you have been.
And I'm not trying to give myself credit for that, because one of the things I've always liked about Granit Xhaka is that, okay, he has made mistakes and there have been performances that weren't very good. We can remember a time when he was giving away goals and getting himself sent off. But one thing you can always say about that man is that he's a character in the dressing room, a big character, and he has leadership qualities, which we've needed. We needed a guy like that.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And so I've always sort of looked at that, even when he weren't playing well. Now that he's playing well, or has been playing well the last couple of seasons, that's just part of the overall persona of the man that I appreciate. So I think he's been good. I think the question was put on the live stream as to, out of 10, how much would you give him? I said 7. And I think he's been a force for good. I think he's been a very good player.
Let me be totally and utterly honest on the Granit Xhaka thing here, because we're having the discussion, and I think it could be very easy. I'm not saying you're doing this, by the way, but I think it could be very easy in the aftermath of his final game and a win on a sunny day when it's ultimately been a positive season, as he's had a really good season. I think it could be very easy to almost overdo it in terms of what we've got from Granit Xhaka as a player from the last 7 years. And I want to be as absolutely, completely fair as possible.
Yeah, go for it.
My opinion is, if you're asking me whether overall Granit Xhaka has been a good signing for us, he came for 35 million, which at the time was quite a lot. 35 million 7 years ago isn't really what 35 million is now. He came in for 35 million with a lot of hype and expectation, that physicality in midfield. Do I ultimately think overall it's been more a force for good than bad? I'm not 100% sure I can say it has been. Right. I think we often looked very slow in midfield at times. I felt that football grew beyond just having technical players and maybe robust. I think you have to have energy, you have to have legs. I think that often, I don't know, I don't think he was played in the right position, but you obviously blame the managers for that as well. And I think as he's sort of grown, he's got better, and Arteta has really got the best out of him in the last, I'd say, 2 years, but especially this season. Arteta, the way he's used him as a box-to-box, I think has been everything. He's come leaps and bounds, Xhaka. And you can't, forget the disciplinary record. A lot of people kind of say, well, that's just a part of Granit Xhaka. That's just what he's like. I'm not sure I buy that either. Do you need to go in sort of two-footed in certain challenges where he's been sent off, grabbing players by the neck at times, and the high kick on Jota. There have been moments where I'm like, I don't think that's just being an aggressive player. I think these are kind of stupid moments. But the reason I'm talking about all this, because I want to, again, like I said, have a fair reflection on Granit Xhaka's time at Arsenal. I think the way he's ended the season, though, sorry, the way he's ended his Arsenal career in this final season, it's been so good. Like, he's been so brilliant this season that I am now upset he's leaving. So for everything I've just said, I'm sort of willing to forget and forgive all of that, because the way he's played the last year, or give it 18 months, give it 2 years, but especially this last season, he's been so good that I actually think he's going to be really difficult to replace.
Yeah, no, I agree, 100%. And I think it's also fair to say, and we should point out that how many managers has been at the club since Jack has been? Is it 4? Wenger, Ljungberg, Emery.
Sure, if you include Ljungberg, so yeah,
so that's 4 managers, and all 4 of those managers have played him consistently. So that tells you that they've all fought fairly highly of him to play him on a consistent basis. You also got to factor into something you touched on. He's playing in a new role now, and he did very well in that new role. So he's shown a certain adaptability. And then, like I said, you got to also factor in the fact that he's a big character in the dressing room. What I would genuinely call as a leader amongst men. I think
we saw that away at Newcastle, didn't we? That away performance was really spectacular. I mean, I thought that was one of his best, and I actually think, amongst the criticism of which I've just delivered some of the things people would say about Granit Xhaka and his kind of overall time at Arsenal, one of the things I don't think he gets anywhere near enough credit for is his FA Cup final performances. We talk about trophies, we talk about making history, we talk about lifting silverware. In 2 massive games against Chelsea, one where they weren't great but we also finished 8th, so but they were better than us, and then one where we came against Conte's 90-point Premier League winning side. Maybe they got a few more points there, but Conte's Premier League winning side that were on for the double. Xhaka was brilliant in that game as well, and he was a big part of 2 FA Cup wins, and credit to him for that. Because it could have been, again, I've seen players hide in finals or disappear or whatever, and he wasn't at his best. He wasn't the Granit Xhaka then that he's been this season, but in those 2 massive games he stepped up, as he did in the semi-finals against Man City, by the way. So no,
he can play, and like I said before, he the fans really went for him. Remember the famous incident with the armband and all the rest of it, but he fought their way back into their affections. And that takes a lot of doing, because you've seen with previous players, not just at Arsenal, any football club, it would appear that once you've lost the fans at the football club, that's it. But he managed to turn his relationship around with the fans to the point like you said, look at the reception he got today, fans saying we want you to stay. That doesn't happen often at football clubs.
No, you're right.
You've got to give him credit for all those things.
Very, very true.
And I think there's one other thing I'd like to say as well. And for me, this is quite important, right? So if you remember, I'm sure you do, when Granit Xhaka signed, one of the things that was often chucked around at Arsenal is that we're lightweight in midfield. There's no physicality. When it gets down, tough and dirty, players go missing. I think if we're being honest, you would never say that about Xhaka.
No, very true.
You can accuse him of losing his head at times. Yes, I'll give you that with some of the rash challenges and the sending offs. But when it got physical, when it got a bit nasty, when some of the dark arts were needed, Xhaka, in that Arsenal team, was one of the few that was willing to go there. And that does count for a lot. I do think, though, having said all of that, or heaped all that praise on him, I do think, and I'll be interested to hear what you think about this, and I was making a point on the stream, as much as we're sad to see him go, it's almost one of those where you're excited for the future as well. And I do think that him leaving is actually mutually beneficial. Because let's face it, Granit Xhaka, how old is he now? 32, 3?
31, I think.
31.
I
thought he was slightly older than that.
Yeah.
But, he's not young. He's not a spring chicken.
30.
Oh, 30. Yeah. Okay, so he's not young. I mean, there's still a couple of years there. Good.
Yeah.
But he's entering into that phase where they're getting on a little bit. You know what I mean? And
no, I think what you said there is spot on. That actually, whilst there's a sort of actually Xhaka's kind of leaving at his best. That's a little sad. There is excitement.
Yeah, for
Arsenal
the future.
Have to address that midfield position now. I think in previous years, Arteta has sort of found a way around it, and I've always said we needed to add a midfield. I desperately wanted Tielemans last summer, and now he's been relegated. But I
might get him now.
Well, I think he would, especially on a free. I really wanted that position to be addressed, and he sort of messed around with it in, well, Smith Rowe can play there. Well, Lokonga maybe is an 8. Well, Vieira is more of an Odegaard, but we'll just play him in Xhaka's role. He's sort of done things to sort of just wriggle a way out of it. But the reality is he can't not address it now. He absolutely has to.
Exactly. Because I'm kind of excited for the future, because I'm thinking, like you, I'm sure, Declan Rice, Caicedo, maybe even both.
Yeah.
That's what the fans, they want both. But it looks like we'll get one or the other. A lot of people are saying the Declan Rice thing is a forerunner.
Yeah.
So if you're bringing in someone like that to replace Xhaka, or bolstering the midfield by bringing in someone like Declan Rice, you're actually excited for the future, because with respect to Xhaka and what he's done, you're bringing in a young gun like Declan Rice, you can only be excited by that. So
I completely and utterly agree.
So and also for Xhaka going the other way, that's a new challenge for him. We've heard, you may have heard as well, that his wife favours a return back to Germany.
Okay, fine.
So this move to Leverkusen will be good for him.